Alright, man, peace. So, brothers, in the aftermath of World War II, the seeds were sown for what we call today in history the Cold War between America and the Western powers and the Soviet Union and the incumbent communist factions located in the East. That's why parts of Eastern Europe were known as the Eastern Bloc. Whatever was controlled by the Soviet Union was known as the Eastern Bloc. And of course, you also had North Korea, China, etc. as being confederate with the Soviet Union. So you had these two factions going against each other, waging a propaganda war against one another. That's why it was known as the Cold War, because in all reality, they were never going to fire missiles at one another, because behind the scenes, they were all on the same team, unbeknownst to the masses of people in both locations or who are associated with or supporters of either side. My point is this. Right now, LeBron James is attempting to wage a Cold War against Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard really started it earlier on this season with some of the commercials that he had produced by New Balance, etc., where he called himself the King of LA, knowing that that was going to be taken a certain way by LeBron James. Now LeBron James is trying to quote-unquote troll Kawhi Leonard back by claiming that he's going to play in every game, and unless he's hurt, that's the only way that he's going to sit out. He knows what that means. He knows that right now he's vying to try to take his throne back from Kawhi Leonard. And it very much reminds me of the 1992-1993 basketball season, when Charles Barkley went to the Phoenix Suns and they got off to a great start and ended the season with the best record in the NBA. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, they were returning from the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona, and Phil Jackson had allowed them to rest for the majority of that training camp in 1992, which is the reason why that team only won 57 games that season. It took them a very long time to start to take the regular season seriously. You know, not to digress, but a lot of the people who never watched that era of basketball, they used that time period to try to claim that Michael Jordan was not that great because, of course, the year after that, the Bulls won 55 games and blah, blah, blah. They won 57 in 93. They won 55 in 94. So how great was Jordan really? The point is that you have to understand the context. And eventually, Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns, who had the best record in the NBA that season, met up with the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, who not only did not have the best record in the NBA, they did not even have the best record in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks had the best record in the Eastern Conference that year. And the Bulls had to win that pivotal Game 5 in New York, the Charles Smith game, where they blocked him 3 separate times. Jordan stripped him, and Pippen blocked him, and Horace Grant blocked him. And of course, they were able to move past that round, move past the New York Knicks, square up against the Phoenix Suns in the finals, where they were able to defeat the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. And to be honest with you, that series very easily could have been a sweep, because Game 3 of that series went into triple overtime, resulting in a Phoenix Suns victory. The Bulls won Game 4, and that really should have been it, because had the Bulls won that Game 3, of course, the series would have been a wrap. The referees seem to have swallowed their whistles down the course of the game in Game 3, but it is what it is. The point being is this. The Clippers and the Lakers are clearly building up towards a cataclysmic matchup in the Western Conference Finals or the Western Conference Semis, wherever they end up matching up. And that series is going to be a deciding factor in who's going to be considered the best player in the NBA right now, because that certainly is a bone of contention. No one really knows who the best player is. Many people still give the credit to LeBron James. Certain people like myself state that Kawhi Leonard, in light of what he was able to accomplish in last year's playoffs, should be considered the best player in the NBA. And then, of course, you have people who say James Harden or Giannis or whoever. And then, of course, you have Luka Doncic on the come up. Well, as I stated earlier in this video, LeBron James has decided that he's going to wage a Cold War against Kawhi Leonard, a propaganda war. And he's going to start to allege that he plays for the fans and he only sits down if he's injured, which is hilarious because he's only played 82 games one time in his 17-year career. I do believe that he's going to try to do it this year, especially in light of the fact that he knows that his career is winding down. I don't care what anyone says. Of course, LeBron still puts up very good numbers, but it is very easy to see that he's lost at least one step, at least one, maybe a step and a half, maybe even 2 steps, because as I've stated, he has a very difficult time beating his man to the basket anymore. He always has to reverse, pivot, spin, and try to get either a layup or a dunk off the spin. So we'll see what happens later on this season. Right now, the Lakers, they're in heaven right now. They're playing balls to the wall every game. They're treating every regular season game like it's Game 7. And we'll see how much gas they have left at the end. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
I play.
That's just going to be your approach all year.
I mean, that should be the approach. I mean, unless we're getting to late in the season, we've clinched and we can't get any better or any worse, then it could benefit from that. But I mean, why wouldn't I play if I'm healthy? It doesn't make.
That's interesting. You were previously an advocate of load management in Cleveland, especially in 2016 and 2017. In the 2017-2018 season, when you lost Kyrie, then of course you played all 82 games, but you also did it because you wanted to win the regular season MVP award. Now all of a sudden you're trying to steal Michael Jordan's line and act as if you play for the fans. Knock it off, brother.
Personally, I mean, I don't know how many games I got left in my career. I don't know how many kids that may show up to a game and they're to come see me play, and if I sit out, then what?
All of a sudden you care about the kids now, right? All of a sudden you care about the kids that are going to come see you play. No wonder he's in Hollywood. He's a hell of an actor.
That's my obligation. My obligation is to play for my teammates, and if I'm healthy, then I'm gonna play. If coach sits me out, then I'm not healthy, and it's just that simple.
Physically or mentally?
LeBron loves the kids. You heard him. If I'm healthy, I am playing. Kawhi Leonard taking the opposite approach, but keep in mind he did.
That's the point, and that's why LeBron was saying what he was saying. That was an attempt to troll Kawhi Leonard, and good job on his part, because LeBron knows what's at stake.
Leg injury. Max, I will start with you here.
Yeah.
And you can't see us yet, but Richard Jefferson joined us. What's going on?
It's great to be here. It's just really good to see these fine individuals.
Yeah?
And you too, Stephen A. And you too. It's great to see.
Max, would you rather have LeBron or Kawhi right now?
Kawhi. I want everyone, what do the kids say, keep that same energy?
I agree with you, sir. And I agree with your sentiment. Keep that same energy. All that shit that you popping right now, all these Laker fans in my comment section running their mouth, keep that same energy, that same vibe in the playoffs when they finally meet up.
Who's talking about LeBron, who's trying to recast himself as an Iron Man now. Go look up Michael Jordan's numbers. Played defense, played both ends all the time at a higher level than LeBron plays either end, by the way.
Good job, sir. When it comes to certain topics, Max Kellerman is on point. It's hilarious to me that just a couple of years ago, Max Kellerman was claiming that LeBron James was light years ahead of everybody. Now, all of a sudden, he's arguing for Kawhi Leonard being better than LeBron.
82. LeBron, 69, 72, 71. All of a sudden, he's recasting himself as an Iron Man. LeBron was smart when he would load manage.
Yeah.
He was smart. You know who wasn't smart? The Golden State Warriors when they chased 73 wins.
That's a red herring. I've always said this about the Golden State Warriors. They try to blame why they did not win the 2016 finals on going for the regular season record or whatever you want to call it. They try to blame why they did not win the 2016 NBA finals on chasing the regular season win total record. When in all reality, the reason why they lost those finals was because they just were not good enough mentally. Mr. Draymond Green decided that he was more concerned with trying to shame LeBron James than win a championship. Steph Curry fell off a cliff mentally in Game 6. And part of that was because it was very clear that there was a mandate that came down, either from Adam Silver or from whatever bookie certain referees owed money to, that you were going to blow the whistle on Steph Curry for every single thing. And that dude got kicked out of an NBA Finals game. He fouled out of an NBA Finals game with about 6 minutes left in the game. Unbelievable. So those were some of the components that led to the fall of Golden State in 2016. Not going for the regular season record, because there were many games over the course of that season where Steph Curry only played 29, 30 minutes in the game, because by the third quarter, they were blowing out the other team.
Playing fourth quarters and overtimes of games when the Spurs weren't going to catch him. Spurs weren't going to catch him.
Nonsense. With about a week and a half left in that season, the Spurs were only 2 games back of the Warriors. People might not remember this, but the Warriors ended that season winning 73 games. The Spurs won 67 games that season. And it literally came down to 2 weeks left, and the Spurs were about a game and a half, maybe 2 games back of the Warriors. And Golden State had to win those games.
And what happened? Game 7 at Oracle, they lose the championship. How about chasing championships? Don't worry about the nonsense. LeBron is too caught up in the regular season right now. And I want to keep the same energy. That's how this applies. I want everyone who's talking about load management with Kawhi right now to keep that same energy.
Yes, because you could tell right now Kawhi Leonard, he's approaching the regular season like a sparring match. He's going at 3/4 speed. When the playoffs come, you're going to see a whole different beast. And what's amazing is that it looks like he's relaxing on defense when you watch the Clippers play. But I think he's number 2 or number 3 in the NBA in defensive win shares still.
Kawhi is dominating the postseason again. It just worked. The Greek Freak, it was his world in the Eastern Conference all regular season. They were load managing Kawhi, who was like a half step below the MVPs in the regular season, just like now. Just like now. And when the rubber met the road, Kawhi dominated the Greek Freak. Watch these playoffs, because these two teams are going to go to the Western Conference Finals.
I'm telling you, Game 1, Clippers versus the Lakers. As soon as Kawhi sees LeBron James, he's going to say, "I'm a friend of Saracana. May I see her, please?"
Kawhi will get his team through. LeBron's not going to want any parts of Kawhi, who will be fully rested while they're foolishly overplaying LeBron in the regular season. Keep that same energy.
I will. Number 1. Number 2, don't interrupt me where I'm going here. Because with this segment ain't going nowhere. We're going to come back with this. Because there's a couple of things that Max has left out in terms of our position, just theoretically speaking, what our position is about load management. And I'll get into that in just a second. First of all, let me understand. I would take LeBron over Kawhi Leonard right now. We ain't talking about longevity.
Okay.
We're talking about for this season. I would take LeBron over Kawhi. Let me be very, very emphatic about that. Secondly, I'm incredibly proud of the position that LeBron has taken with all of this. Now, I'm no fool. I know how LeBron was in the past, and you can speak to that later. I know what time he took off. I know there was a time in his career when he engaged in load management, particularly with that damn diet. What the hell was that?
Paleo diet.
The paleo diet.
Oh, the paleo diet. You mean when he left Miami in 2014 and all of a sudden turned into a skeleton during the summer before he joined Cleveland? And then he goes to Cleveland, he can barely dunk a basketball. He was averaging about 21 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. They were shooting about 42% from the field. And then takes off 2 weeks, goes down to Miami. For whatever reason, he had to go back down to Miami to get his body right, quote unquote, get his body right. And then returns looking like the Incredible Hulk and takes over down the stretch of the remainder of the season. I wonder what really happened there. Could it be that Adam Silver stated that they were going to start testing for HGH and LeBron James was trying to purge his system of whatever chemicals were flowing through his bloodstream? Possibly, allegedly, who knows? I do know that his name was on the biogenesis ledger, and it just seemed very strange to me that a professional athlete of LeBron James' caliber would allow the loss of apparently functional muscle mass to that degree on his body. Once again, knowing that he's been able to utilize that muscle mass over the course of the previous 5 or 6 seasons, all of a sudden you're going to change up your diet to that degree and lose that much weight, and there's not some type of ulterior motive? Sorry, just not buying it.
That's what it was, particularly at the time. I didn't forget that. I did not forget that.
Took 2 weeks off.
That's right. That's right. And went to South Beach.
And by the way, came back, cock Diesel, back to being LeBron James.
I got it. So,
thank you, Max Kellerman. You must know something. Richard Jeffers is just smiling. Yeah, LeBron's on that shit. Let's change the topic, please. He helped me get this job.
understand that. I'm not oblivious to the fact that he has exercised what Kawhi is exercising to some degree right now. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, for the purposes of this season, here's what I think LeBron needs to be appreciated about. And it's completely the antithesis of what I said on opening night. Opening night, when LeBron did not show up for that challenge with the Kawhi, with the commercials, and I'm here in LA, it's my town now, that kind of stuff. And LeBron was sitting there trying to feed Anthony Davis. Ooh, I was never more irritated, because I'm like, what? Opening night? Everybody here? Where the hell you at? Don't handle this, you know.
Well, look, we're going to find out on Christmas. We're going to get a second chance to see exactly where LeBron James' heart is at on Christmas.
Do that. Now, as the Lakers are flowing and he's doing this thing, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to Christmas Day when he goes up against Kawhi, because I got news for you and I want to put this on Front Street right now, Max. You told me to keep the same energy. I'm going to keep the same energy. I know the Clippers are, to me, they're a better team, more complete team. They're better defensively. As exceptional as I think the Lakers coaching is this year, with both of them, I don't care. I'm looking at Doc Rivers, but I'm telling you right now, I picked the Lakers for two reasons. LeBron and Anthony Davis. And let me tell you something right now. Let me put this on Front Street so everybody know. I can't wait until the Lakers and the Clippers go against one another. I can't wait.
Me too. Because I want the Clippers and the Lakers to go head to head so that all of our questions can be answered right away.
If you think you're going to see that same Kawhi who didn't have to go against KD in the finals, the one game that KD showed up, he's going to smoke him. They'd have got smoked in 5, probably got swept.
Right, but you're talking about the Golden State Warriors. There's literally no real way to defend that team in this era when you cannot put hands on them. You have 3 elite snipers with range out to 25, 30 feet. So there was nothing that any defensive team would ever be able to do in this era. When KD came out there in Game 5, I mean, it was like, wow. I think I made the analogy that it was almost like the best infantry in the world in an open field against a weak army that had the best snipers in the world strategically placed in trees. You're going to get picked apart. It doesn't matter. I don't care how well trained you are as an infantry. If you're going against the best snipers in the world and they're strategically placed and you can't spot them, you cannot take them down, they're going to pick you apart to the point where you have to retreat and come up with another strategy. That's what would have happened had KD played that whole series, because you saw a snippet of it in Game 5.
Okay, so let me tell you, and the lucky traveling before it bounced 4 times and went through the rim against the Sixers in the Game 7. Let me tell you something. This Kawhi Leonard, top 5 player, I know he's elite, big time. But when you talk about him the way you talk about him, acting like last year is indicative of what he will do this year and for years to come, I got news for you, sir. That won't happen.
Well, here's the issue with that, Stephen A. Smith. Kawhi Leonard is not a player who's only had one good playoff run. Now, last year's playoff run was historic. It wasn't just good, it wasn't great, it was historically great. The playoff run that Kawhi Leonard had was up there with LeBron's playoff run in 2018, with some of Kobe's playoff runs in the late 2000s, with some of Jordan's playoff runs in the early 90s, with Hakeem's playoff run in 94. Those were the playoff runs that last year's playoff run by Kawhi has been getting compared to, or last season's, because it was in 2019.
Management after you speak, but I'm going to tell you something right now. The fact that in this day and age where we see this low management hurting the game and people like him don't give a damn about the fans in the regular season. He can give us. Right. Max is all about the championship. Right. He don't give a damn if Kawhi Leonard played 30 games as long as he's ready for the playoffs. If he missed 52 games.
Well, Kawhi has to play a certain amount of games just to keep his rhythm. So it would actually hurt him to play less than 60 to 65 games unless he were hurt or injured in some way that will compromise his health were he to be out there on the basketball floor.
Fans, when you come into the arena on a night-in, night-out basis, Max does not care about that. I do, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is not going to surprise a lot of people. I respect what you say. I respect what you say. But I'm taking LeBron, and this is why.
Because LeBron got you the job at ESPN. And with the Nets. And he's also helping you pay your rent.
At any point in time in Kawhi Leonard's career, has he ever been considered the best player in basketball? Never. A great two-way player, best defensive player. All of these things, never the best player in basketball. Right?
Right, but what does that really mean? If you're the best two-way player in basketball, at the very least, you're in the conversation for best player in basketball. And I've always given Max Kellerman a lot of credit for this because he was ahead of the crowd in his assessment that Kawhi Leonard was coming and that in his view, Kawhi was second to LeBron. He'd always said that Kawhi was above KD. And it was very difficult to discern exactly how great Kawhi was because he played in that Spurs system. And there were people who claimed, including Kevin Durant, that Kawhi was just a system player until he left the Spurs and showed how dominant he was in Toronto. But once again, if you're the best two-way player in the NBA, you're going to be considered at the very least top 3 to top 5. To me, Kawhi Leonard is a better version of Scottie Pippen. Maybe not quite as good defensively when it comes to on-ball defense, or maybe he is. Who knows? He might be right there with Scottie when it comes to on-ball defense. Offensively, he's a better player than Scottie Pippen ever was. And there were moments in the 90s, particularly when Jordan was retired in 93, 94, that Pippen was viewed as being the second or maybe even the best player in the league. He was combating Hakeem Olajuwon for that MVP award in 94.
And yes, to your point, he goes through a weaker Eastern Conference. He is rested. He's able to do that. And after that run that he had against a broke-down Warriors team, now he's the best player in basketball. Now we want to crown him this. And there's no disrespect to say this man is a top 5, to say that he's the best two-way. But he's not the best player in basketball. And you talked about like Kevin Durant coming back and was going to show like, oh, wait, it's me and LeBron. And that's it.
That's right.
Right. And he was going to show it very, very quickly.
Absolutely.
Like, I ain't played in 2 months.
That's right.
I got a bum leg.
That's
and
right.
I got 11 points
First quarter
in 12 minutes. I got 11 points in 12 minutes. And I'm going to show you guys what it was.
Right, but KD is a historic scorer. Kevin Durant and Michael Jordan are the 2 best scorers in the last 35 years when you combine efficiency and proficiency. Will KD, along with Steph and Klay Thompson, been able to spark Kawhi and the Toronto Raptors? Probably, yeah. Because once again, it's almost impossible to guard a team with 3 shooters on that level who also play very good defense. But when we're talking about the best overall player, I've always thought that Kawhi and KD were, right there interchangeable. It depends on who you prefer or what you prefer. But with KD out, of course, KD is out of the conversation. Right now, it's come down to Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James. Like Kyle Reese said in The Terminator, nobody goes home. Nobody else comes through. It's just him and me. That's it. And that's what it's going to come down to in the Western Conference Finals or the semifinals, wherever they meet.
You were talking about you were frustrated when Bron didn't take that challenge, right?
Opening night.
Oh, opening night.
Right.
But what did it foreshadow? It foreshadowed a guy that was trying to elevate his teammates, and that was going to be his goal. He's leading the NBA in assists by a substantial margin because he was like the.
Do you also count the assists that he's giving you to get that position at ESPN? So instead of 11 assists a game, he's averaging 12 assists because he helped you get that job, right, Richard Jefferson?
Game thing. He's like, no, I'm going to feed Anthony Davis. I'm going to get these other guys involved. That's going to be my #1 priority. And I'm not going to pick and choose how I want to play and how I want to dominate. I'm going to establish this all season long that I'm going to be a 25-10 guy. Right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead this league in assists. So when we're looking at Kawhi or LeBron James, Kawhi is a great defender, an elite scorer, best two-way player.
Much better passer than he used to be, too.
Much better, a much improved passer. And to me, if we're critiquing the greatest player.
Let me also say this. Kawhi is also a great rebounder. If he wants to, he can average 10, 11 rebounds a game. I'm sure people will say the same thing about LeBron. But LeBron, to me, has always been someone who gets rebounds by accident. He's never really tried to rebound. Kawhi actually tries to rebound, and that is a part of defense.
The one criticism, I think he was too much of an old school two guard. Wasn't getting other people involved, and that's where LeBron was always above him.
Look, here's my problem with your argument.
Well, hold up, Max Kellerman. Let me say my problem with this argument first. You cannot give Kawhi Leonard a demerit for being a quote-unquote old school 2 guard because how he plays has a direct correlation with the system that he's in. LeBron James really is not doing anything new. He has not created a new style. What he's done is he's taken the style that Oscar Robertson brought into the NBA and taken it to another level because he's bigger, stronger, faster, and more explosive than Oscar Robertson was. But he's a guy who everything goes through him. He has a huge basketball IQ. He's able to see things happen before they happen. And sometimes that leads to mental paralysis because he can see things with such clarity that he freezes and he's not quite sure what to do because the moment starts to envelop him. With Kawhi Leonard, he does not even worry about that. He just reacts and responds. That's why he's able to make a lot of those big shots down the stretch. And I'm sure people will say, well, LeBron James has a lot of big shots that he's made down the stretch also. That's true. But they're two different player archetypes. But once again, we're going to find out in the playoffs.
Hurting the general consensus about Kawhi. I disagree and have disagreed with the consensus about Kawhi. I had him the second best player in basketball to LeBron James. I admit there was a gap when LeBron was a little younger. But I noticed his effect on the Spurs. When he was a puppy and didn't even know what he was doing yet, he was the MVP because of the defensive job he did on LeBron, and then also started dropping 20 points a game before he was really ready to in the finals.
Yeah, but even Andre Iguodala.
Okay,
Hold your thought.
Right, but we already know that Andre Iguodala is not the player that Kawhi Leonard is. So this attempt to associate or link up Andre Iguodala with Kawhi Leonard, that's another attempt at a red herring by the LeBron James worshippers in the mainstream liberal sports media.
Break in. We want to continue the subject because this is good. All right, Richard, staying put. And
okay, so now we're going to pick up where we left off with this little debate.
We're just discussing who should you want right now, and Max, you were responding to Richard on why Kawhi is the best player in the league.
But you mind your manners. Let me tell you something right now, real quick. You mind your manners. You watch your tongue and your blasphemy before you open your mouth. Richard Jefferson was warning you between the break. I'm warning you. Be careful about what you say, Max. The floor is yours.
Max Kellerman does not believe in the concept of blasphemy because he believes that he is his own God. So your warnings are falling on deaf ears, Stephen A. Smith.
What about you saying?
Max, do you?
Put the camera on.
Here's the problem.
Put the camera on.
Here's the problem with Kawhi.
Ask for the camera. I dare you. Ask for the camera.
Zoom in.
I want their reactions too. I want their reactions too. Look, the problem with everyone's stance on Kawhi is you've already made up your mind. There is nothing he can do to convince anyone.
Agreed. And that's the best point that can be made about any debate between Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James.
Let me show you what I mean. Last year in the Eastern Conference, I said Kawhi Giannis right now. That's actually for best player in the world.
And you were correct.
Kawhi got him. He owned Giannis, who was the MVP. He's going to be the MVP again, Giannis. Owned him. Went through Embiid and Simmons with one of the most clutch shots in the history of the game. Had one of the best postseasons ever. And beat, obviously, a depleted Warriors team, because we all agree, if the Warriors are at full strength, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like, one player not going to beat that team. That says nothing. That, oh, KD was hurt. If Kawhi was on the Warriors and KD was on the Raptors, the Warriors with a healthy Kawhi destroy the Raptors with a healthy KD. That doesn't prove anything.
What?
Here's the problem. That's right.
That's absolutely right, Stephen A. Smith. Why are you acting flabbergasted for? If the Warriors had Kawhi Leonard with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, you think that if the Raptors had KD, they would beat the Warriors?
Say that again?
If you put a healthy Kawhi on the Warriors and a healthy KD on the Raptors, the Warriors would have destroyed the Raptors. The Warriors have Steph and Klay.
Agreed.
And they're just too good.
They would have won. Steph and Klay. Okay.
People's made up their minds about Kawhi. And in the regular season, there are better players than him. He's close, but they're a little bit better. But the most leveraged games by far in a very long postseason are in the playoffs. And so if it's close in the regular season, but one guy's significantly better in the playoffs, he's the best.
Let me also say this to Max Kellerman's point. People forget how dominant Kawhi Leonard was in the 2017 playoffs. That game one against the Warriors, a Warriors team that had KD, Steph, and Klay, he was by far the best player on the floor on both offense and defense. He was dominating that whole game until he got hurt when he fell on homeboy's foot. Zaza Pacheep shot, as Skip Bayless calls him. And the whole series changed after that.
Period. So Kawhi wins the Finals MVP, wins the championship. That doesn't prove it to you. If he wins the Finals MVP again this year on the Clippers, I'll hear more excuses why it's not him.
I agree.
Tell you, if Kawhi would have stayed in Toronto, they'd win the championship.
I agree with that as well. I think that Toronto, with Kawhi, would beat the Lakers in the finals where they two meet.
Stop with that. This year?
This year.
With the Lakers and AD?
If Kawhi stayed in Toronto, they won the championship.
Oh my.
Absolutely. What the Raptors would do is they would put Gasol and Ibaka on AD. They would double team him every time he got the basketball. And they would put a pincer on LeBron between Kawhi and Pascal Siakam. and you'll watch how frustrated the Lakers get. They would make the Lakers look like a two-man team with no other options. They would take them completely out of their offense.
I have your basketball.
They got 18 wins without Kawhi.
I don't give a damn.
They didn't get anything for him.
You watch your mouth. You heard that. You silent. You shouting right now. I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to save you right now because your basketball card's about to be stripped. This Toronto, I know Toronto Raptors are a good team. They're ready for the division. I got to with Kawhi. You trying to tell me that they would take out the Lakers, or they would take out a Clippers team with Paul George, and let's say some other superstar.
Let me say this very quickly. We just saw the Toronto Raptors go into LA and blow the Lakers off of their own home court with no Kawhi Leonard, and I believe with no Kyle Lowry. And of course, people will say, well, it's the regular season. I agree with that. But as has already been shown, the Lakers are playing balls to the wall in the regular season. So I have to count that as a relatively accurate profile or depiction of what would occur in the postseason. Now, I think that without Kawhi and Kyle Lowry, or even just without Kawhi, the Lakers would find a way to defeat the Raptors in the finals, most likely in 6 games or something like that. But I think that without a doubt, no doubt in my mind, if the Raptors still had Kawhi Leonard and they were to square up against this year's Laker team, they would give the Lakers hell. Because the Lakers' strength is their front court. The Raptors are one of the few teams in the league that will be able to provide the size in the front court to nullify what the Lakers do. See, the Lakers are getting away with having marginal players like Dwight Howard. At this point in his career, he's a marginal player but a great athlete. So he can still defend and rebound exceedingly well. And also a JaVale McGee. The Raptors would take those guys right out of the game because they would get nullified by Gasol and Ibaka, Siakam, Anunoby, etc. And once again, the Raptors will put a pincer on LeBron with Kawhi and Pascal Siakam. They would form a wall against AD. Now, AD, of course, has a better mid-range jump shot than Giannis, so he would be a bit more proficient offensively in half court. But AD is someone who we've seen kind of crumble under pressure before. And it's much more difficult to hit jump shots in the finals in those pressurized situations. So I think that we would see that Caldwell Pope and a lot of these guys who are making open jump shots now, they would not be making them in the finals. The only flaw that I see with the Clippers is that they might be too light in the ass in the front court. That might be a problem for them because I could see the Lakers being dominant over them rebounding wise. Other than that, most of the advantages go to the Clippers.
Really? Yeah. You don't even need to be talking basketball. Let me tell you something.
They got 18 wins. They just removed them from the team. They didn't trade them.
I heard you. I remember when Kawhi Leonard was on the San Antonio Spurs. Yes. And I'm not talking about when Jaja Jr. undercut him with that slick move and messed up his ankle, whatever. Even before that, they had won like 66, 67 games and got bounced out by Oklahoma City and KD. Let's remember that. Let's also remember.
I'm not quite sure if they won 66 or 67 games that year when they got knocked out by KD and OKC. I think they probably won in the low 60s, and that Oklahoma City team was a 55-win team that had blown the most fourth quarter leads of any team in the NBA. I'm going to say it again. That OKC team won 55 games that season, and they blew something like 18 or 19 fourth quarter games. They were viewed as a team that was underachieving. I believe that was Billy Donovan's first season with the squad. And they got blown out by San Antonio in game 1, I think. And then won game 2. And might have only lost one more game the rest of that series. But they just ran them off the basketball floor. That's all that happened. OKC was the most talented team in the league. Their problem was they had that nut job at point guard, Russell Westbrook. That's why they blew the 3-1 lead to Golden State.
Kawhi just came on the scene. You talk about load management. He averaged 39 minutes per game last year in the postseason, and he did his thing, particularly against the Greek Freak when Nick Nurse switched and had him guarding the Greek Freak, picking him up at midcourt. We understand all of that, but we know that the Warriors depleted. We know what would have happened to him. I'm looking at Kawhi Leonard from this perspective. Top 5 player in the world. Everything that you said about his game is accurate. But I also know this. He has never been asked to carry the kind of load a LeBron James has carried. He has never been asked.
Right, but what does that really mean? It's a team sport. This is what LeBron has asked for. He is asked to carry the load. And I'm not going to accept that excuse right now with Anthony Davis on the team. They have 2 top 5 players in the NBA. That is what most people state, that Anthony Davis is a top 5 player. And I would agree with that this season with AD. With Kevin Durant and Steph Curry out, I would put Anthony Davis in that top 5. So I don't want to hear about this nonsense with all the load being on LeBron James. These are the excuses that these media fanboys make. No, it's even Steven. They're going to meet in the playoffs. Whoever wins is the better team, and the star of that team is the better player. Bottom line.
No. That's how. Please, again, they were depleted. And by the way,
Sixers depleted.
Excuse
Were
me.
the Bucks depleted?
Don't get me started with the Sixers with Joel Embiid with his bipolar stuff, sitting there showing up one time or another. Oh, wait a minute, but it still went Game 7, and he traveled on that game-winning shot. That's the truth. But that's fine. That's fine. Milwaukee. Listen, Milwaukee. I was never sold on Milwaukee. I'm more sold on them this year than I was last year. The jury is still out on whether or not Kawhi is that guy. And
let me say this also, just to chime in for a moment, if we're going to talk about teams that we're sold on. Watch out for the Dallas Mavericks. I stated this in another video. That's a team that has a tandem that could offset what LeBron and AD bring to the table. With Doncic and Porzingis, they could possibly offset what LeBron and AD bring to the table. And then it will come down to who has the overall better schematics out there on the floor, who plays harder on defense, who's able to make the bigger shots, most likely 3-point shots, so on and so forth. But it would not shock me if there was a quote-unquote shocking upset should the Dallas Mavericks play against the Lakers in the playoffs.
Got on LeBron. This is my argument with LeBron on opening night. I know everything. Of course you're trying to fit Anthony Davis in. Like, it's opening night, dude.
Go get it.
We've been spending the whole off season talking about this is the opening night of the season. You got to answer that call. And
I want to know.
This is where I'm going. I'm calling it. I'm saying this on national television.
Yeah.
If LeBron, I'm not talking about forgetting his game, of course. But if LeBron has that attitude, because you play with him, you know what I'm saying. You know, the jury is still out on whether or not Kawhi is that guy. And why I got on LeBron, this is my argument with LeBron on opening night. I know everything.
How could the jury still be out on whether or not Kawhi Leonard is that guy? Who are the jurors if the jury's still out on that? Even if you don't believe that Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the NBA, to say the jury's still out on whether or not he's that guy, as if to say he's probably not an alpha. No, he's an alpha.
You're trying to fit Anthony Davis in. Like, it's opening night, dude.
Go get it.
We've been spending the whole off season talking about this is the opening night of the season. You got to answer that call. And
I want to know.
This is where I'm going. I'm calling it. I'm saying this on national television.
Yeah.
If LeBron, I'm not talking about forgetting his game, of course. But if LeBron has that attitude, because you play with him, you know what I'm saying. You know where I'm going. If LeBron has that attitude, you know what? I'm getting real sick and tired. But y'all sitting there, I'm getting just tired of that damn Max Kellerman talking about this. Let me handle this. If he has that attitude,
you think he wants that Kawhi smoke?
How about that? You think Kawhi want his smoke?
Does the freak?
Let me ask you a
Kawhi's
question.
is it a shortness of best defender who ever lived?
Is there anybody?
His offense isn't even the
I'm asking the question. Is there anybody in the NBA that want that smoke that Anthony Davis gonna bring with LeBron?
No. Offensive players.
I think that Porzingis will. I believe that the Greek Freak will, should he match up with Anthony Davis. I don't view Anthony Davis as this unbelievable competitor. I think that he can look like a great competitor when the chips are not really that crucial, when the game is not really that crucial. But if you put him in a situation in the conference finals or the finals, you might see a whole different face with him. Who knows? We'll see.
Have the advantage, but Kawhi's offense is a half a tick below the best players in the league,
and one of them is LeBron.
And his defense is better. His defense is significantly better.
And it's debatable that Kawhi Leonard's offense is a half a tick below the best players in the league, because he does not play in the same style as a James Harden or someone like that. Now KD's on a whole other level. KD plays at the most proficient level of offense of any player other than Michael Jordan that we've seen in the modern era. I mean, you also have to throw Larry Bird and Bernard King in there as well when it comes to players who are unbelievably efficient and proficient as well, giving you 25 to 29 points a game, so on and so forth. Jordan's in a class all his own because he was proficient and he was averaging 30 plus points per game. But Kawhi brings a lot to the table, an unbelievable amount to the table, 25 to 27 points per game. And he's almost guaranteed to finish in the top 3 in defensive win shares every season.
So add it all up. What can Kawhi do to convince you he's the best? There must be something.
Kawhi was on
you
that.
guys, there's like nothing he can do.
To me, and again, there's a longevity aspect to this.
That's another red herring. That's like when people talk about who's the best quarterback in the NFL, and they say it's Tom Brady because of what he's done for the last 20 years. No. You cannot create a list based on past accomplishments, especially when there is a clear sign of a drop-off. Well, LeBron James, I've seen a drop-off athletically. Now, his numbers are still pretty much the same, but this era is so offensive-driven and so offensive-oriented. It almost adds 3 to 4 points per game, 2 or 3 assists per game, and probably 4 or 5 percentage points when it comes to his shooting percentage in this era. So there are things that Kawhi can do to prove that he's better than LeBron James, and it starts with conquering him in the playoffs this year.
Talk about the greatest players in this league. They typically do it for a 5 to 10 year stretch, right? I'm talking about healthy, carry the load, give me the ball, and I'm bringing
that kind of player for 5 or 10 years.
He hasn't. And look, I'm not questioning. Look, 2-time Finals MVP. 1 year he got the Finals MVP just because he played defense really, really well. Same with Andre Iguodala. They played great defense and they were able to score the ball and they got their MVPs.
Right, but you know what? Kawhi deserved his MVP award. Iguodala did not deserve his. It should have went to Steph Curry.
Based off of shutting down and slowing down, LeBron James. So think about that. If you can slow him down, you can win a Finals MVP.
You know, like Bill Russell's numbers never matched up
to
Will's, unless you look at Game 7s. Then, like Bill Russell, 30 points, 44.
Oh yeah.
But Bill Russell had an effect on a team. I understand he had better teammates.
And that's why Bill Russell is arguably the most underrated player in the history of the NBA. You have people out here who will tell you that Bill Russell is not even top 10 all time. Oh, look at his stats. He only averaged 18 points a game and he only shot 40% or 42%. Dude, that was a completely different era of basketball. Completely different. If you look at Bill Russell's defensive win shares, he's way ahead of anyone else who ever played. He by far is the most dominant defensive player in the history of the NBA and arguably has the highest basketball IQ of any player in the history of the NBA.
This is what I'll say about Kawhi. When the Warriors were destroying everybody, Kawhi was healthy, and at half, they were up like 23 points.
Yep.
I got hurt, and they got swept. Okay, no, they're not going to...
And let me also say this, just to talk about Bill Russell again for a moment. If you've ever seen Game 6 of the 1980 NBA Finals between the Lakers and the Sixers, of course, that was the game where Kareem was not going to be able to play because of the ankle injury. Before the game, Bill Russell, who's the commentator for that game, before the game, Bill Russell says, watch out for the Lakers tonight. They're dangerous because a small team like that can be highly effective, especially if it's a surprise. And of course, the Lakers go on to win that game and win the finals.
The Warriors, don't get me wrong.
Do you think it is fair to play 60 games and have a great postseason and then crown somebody, or someone that goes 8 straight finals? Somebody that had, like LeBron had an injury too, and he was out with a lesser team. But again, when you look at,
I'm not comparing their careers.
Okay.
LeBron is LeBron is like, there's Michael Jordan and everyone else, and LeBron is either the first or second best of everybody else.
And with that,
whoever lived, that's not Kawhi. And with that being said, and with those very words coming out of your mouth, acknowledging appropriate praise for LeBron James, as critical as I was of him from opening night, I compartmentalize. You use it as an excuse to denigrate the king.
He's not denigrating LeBron James. He's been saying from before the season that Kawhi was better than LeBron.
Right now,
LeBron, I just said, other than Jordan, he's the best to ever live.
What I'm talking about is this. You sit up there and you talk about Kawhi, Mr. Load Management himself, okay? Like this dude, excuse me, there's him. Did you not say at one time, because you brought this up, but you don't know he said this, at one time last year, Max Kellerman called Kawhi Leonard the best player in the world.
Yeah.
He said he was better than Freak. He said he was better than LeBron. He said he was better than...
When he beat the Freak in the playoffs.
I'm just saying you said it. That's what I'm saying. He said he was
still the best player in the world.
I agree with you, Max Kellerman, but you're arguing against fans. And you yourself are a fan because you're a fanboy of LeBron James. It's just that you're all over the place. But these two other guys, they're intimidated by LeBron.
Better than KD? This is what he said. This is what you said. The blasphemy coming out of your mouth.
Let me me be very clear. Look, Kawhi Leonard is the best player on earth. He's the reigning Finals MVP.
No.
He beat the Greek Freak in the playoffs. He was better than the Freak.
Stop it.
LeBron didn't want any part of the opening night. What does he have to do?
He has never won an MVP.
Oh, regular season.
That actually is a relatively good contention. In order for Kawhi to truly be considered the best player in the league, you can make the case that he needs to win a regular season MVP award. That's not a bad contention. I will say this. This will be my rebuttal to that. In 2016 and in 2017, Kawhi Leonard had 2 top 3 finishes in the MVP chase in both 2016 and 2017. Might be top 2 finishes, but I'm trying to remember, because I think that Harden finished second in 2015 when Curry won it, and in 2016 I believe that Kawhi Leonard finished second to Steph Curry, and in 2017 I believe he finished second to James Harden. So I mean, he's been right there, bubbling.
Also known as meaningless MVP.
He has never been the best player in the world.
MVP.
As great as he is, he has never been the best player in the world. As you were saying about Manning.
Excuse me.
Never.
He is the best player today, and he is top 5 because one is in the top 5.
Boy.
In a game where 16 out of 30 teams make the playoffs. That means you have a better.
LeBron, are you listening to this?
LeBron,
are you listening to this?
Of course he's listening to it. That's why he made the statement that he made in the first place, that unless he's injured, he's going to play. That was a shot at Kawhi Leonard. Because once again, LeBron has never been that Iron Man type of player, ever. Now, physically, we give him a lot of credit for the durability of his body, but he's never been the Iron Man guy who's going to play 82, 82, 82, 81, 80, 82, 82. He's just never been that guy. So for him to all of a sudden use the Michael Jordan line in year 17, that clearly was some propaganda indirectly meant to be aimed at Kawhi Leonard.
Better than 50% chance of making
Christmas Day.
You have a
Christmas Day.
I love Kawhi, but come on.
You have a better than 50% chance of making the playoffs in the NBA. There's no such thing as an MVP who comes from, Richard, from a non-playoff team. So there's no point in awarding an MVP before the end of the playoffs.
Is it true?
Well, I disagree with that. Because if that was the case, then you would end up giving the MVP of the entire season every year to a player who just happens to be on the team that won the championship. And I'm not quite sure if you want to do it like that, because those are 2 different seasons. Those 2 awards deserve to be separate.
You went from talking about Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and the Greek Freak as being the best players in the world along with LeBron. You had Greek Freak number 1, and on a Thursday, and by that Monday, you went down to number 3 or 4. Is that true?
I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. You beat the champ. You're the champ.
I agree with you, sir. At least as decisively as Kawhi Leonard was able to defeat Giannis, especially with how close it was, I have no problem with him dropping Giannis down to 4 on his list. I'm not quite sure if Giannis is 4 on my list. I have to think about that. But with KD and Steph out, Giannis might be 4. He might be higher than that. He might be 3 right now.
I tell you what,
at that time the series wasn't over.
What are you going to say? I'm just curious. What are you going to say? Because obviously Paul George and all these guys, Patrick Beverly, everyone's going to be making contributions. What are you going to say if Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the Western Conference Finals and goes on to win the Finals MVP and his team win the championship? You know what you'll say? He had Paul George, he had a better coach.
You don't know what I would say. I'll sit up there and admit the impossible, something I've never had to admit ever in the 3.
Nigga, please. You're literally wrong every season about what team you pick to win the NBA Finals. Every season you're wrong. Stephen A. Smith, man, he's hilarious. He truly tried to convince people that he's some type of basketball expert. And he's wrong about who he picks to win the NBA Finals every damn year.
We've been working together. Max Kellerman's right. That's what I would say. Because I've never had to do it, and I'm not going to do it.
That actually makes you think I'm wrong.
You're going to sit up there. You're going to sit up there and tell me right. I'm telling you right now. I'm hearing what you're saying. LeBron, did you hear this, man? This is why I get upset when it's opening night and LeBron don't answer that call.
You gotta listen to this.
Because I'm like this. I know it's just one game, but in the game of basketball, historically, it could be from the parks, Max. It could be in college. There are moments. Tell me I'm lying about this. There are moments where you go like this. I've even seen Tim Duncan of all people do this. You just look at the coach.
Just give me the ball.
Just give me. Let me put an end to this. That is what
LeBron
James.
A couple of years ago, LeBron James is like twice as good as the next best guy.
LeBron was never twice as good as the next best guy. And that's part of what makes many of Mac's statements about basketball seem so ludicrous, because they're so hyperbolic. He vacillates so drastically in between points. It's like, dude, stop. LeBron was never twice as good as everybody else. But now Max has astutely deduced that LeBron is not the best player in the NBA right now. So it makes it look like such an extreme shift in opinions, like such an extreme polarity shift that he's made. But he's correct. At least in my view, he's correct. Kawhi is the best player in the NBA. But what Kawhi does is not going to be made fully manifest until the playoffs, because Kawhi plays the regular season at about 75 to 85% capacity. When he gets to the playoffs, that's when he throttles it up. And we're going to find out.
That was a couple years ago.
This was a lot of fun, fellas. I'll see y'all on Christmas Day. Still to come, the count.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things go at the end of this season. For the Laker fans out there, enjoy the regular season. This is your heaven. This is just Shangri-La. So enjoy it. So peace.